let's talk about the traction wheel. This is a piece of maple, just 3/4 inch or 1 inch maple that I cut out with a hole saw, standard round hole saw on a drill press, and then basically took a Dremel tool and held it in a vise and came in with a standard the sanding drum, and then rotated the wheel on the drill press, run it through the shaft, and then kind of almost like a router, just routed that cup in there, the convex. This is a real key feature. This cutout that's in here needs to be a 0.2 inch radius, basically, and that is really key, because when the kite line goes around here and this thing spins, the kite line is going to actually try to walk up and down this thing, because it's actually like almost like a screw with threads. And so the curvature of this really forces the kite line to stay centered around the center line of this wheel. And I experimented around with some different diameters on that, and I found that this 0.4 inch works pretty good. And it just happens to be a standard Dremel drum, and I'll show you here what that is. On a Dremel tool like this, and I'll show you some pictures of it on the drill press. But that works pretty well for the poor man's woodworking shop. And then, so when you're done making the wheel and beveling it out, then what you want to do is basically set it up so that you can put a bearing. There's 2 bearings on this. So what I have here is kind of countersunk another hole in here, and I found these bearings. These are called Boca bearings, B-O-C-A, and if you go online you could look at bocabearing.com or search for Boca. This happens to be a 3/8 by 3/16 inch bearing. I think it's a 3/16 inch inside and a 3/8 inch outside, and then I took a 3/16 inch hole through the standard, there'll be an 1/8 inch hole when you do the hole saw thing, and then just set it in here so that you can pop that bearing right in there, and it just seats real nice. Did that on the top and bottom, so that you end up with this wheel then can spin really nicely on the shaft. And then I put a little hand cranker on here, just if you have to manually reel in any of the extra line if it gets loose. And then on the bottom, what I did is I took a couple of 1/4 inch dowels, basically, and then just drilled in here, so that when the power reel and the traction wheel are together, they come together, and then as it spins, these 2 dowels kind of catch ultimately on one of the 3 ribs, and that causes you to engage and turn. Okay, and you'll see that a little bit more. Okay, so this is the traction wheel, and then I coated it with a real thin layer of just polyurethane. I think you could oil it. The key is to keep this fairly smooth, not too tacky. You got to experiment around and find just tacky enough, to catch the line and not too much to add friction. You could try putting rubber around it, but I think rubber causes compression when the thing tightens up, and that ends up being a lot of friction. And again, it's a hard time coming back down on its own. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about the power reel. This is basically just a standard fishing line reel. I think I used just Stren original 8-pound test. These are awesome reels that come in. You just get them right out of the pack, and they're roughly about maybe 3.5 inches mean diameter for your power reel. Use your same ball bearings. Those pop in. They're a little bit loose, but it tends to work with those Boca bearings pretty well. You could shim them out a little bit to be a little bit tighter. And then one modification I had, one of my goals was just to be able to bring extra reels like this and just pop them out of the, go buy a few of them if you needed extra ones and just disassemble it and pop it in. You can pretty much do that, except one of the issues that happens is the kite or the monofilament line, because these don't have much of a lip on them. When you get up and get going and start pulling tension and taking it up and down, ultimately this line will pop off and then get tangled underneath in the axle. So you really need to just try to find a way to extend the lip of this thing. So what I did was just got some foam that you use for model airplanes. It's a real thin model airplane foam they use on wings and stuff for fabricating, and I took a compass with an X-Acto knife and I just cut out basically a couple concentric circles. So I did it just so that it's a little bit bigger than the diameter of the wheel, and then just super glued that on so that you end up with a little bit, maybe a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch extension around the bottom, so that if that monofilament line hangs loose, it'll hang on here and it won't fall off the edge and tangle underneath. That's enough. You really don't need anything on top of it. So came close to being able to use this reel right out of the box, but I think you want to be able to glue this small donut on there, and you can probably come up with a lot of different ways. This is pretty flimsy. As you can see, this has been up and flying about 3 or 4 times, and it's got some nicks in it and things like that. Really doesn't really matter. I really wanted to keep it lightweight, so I didn't use anything more. You could put plywood though if you wanted to, or that thin styrene plastic if you want. And then the other thing, again, one of the issues that can be really kind of a nuisance when you're flying is if that monofilament line comes off. So what I did is just took the standard reel. This comes with 330 yards, so about 1,000 feet of 8-pound test, and you can see this piece here. If it comes loose, it's hard to keep it going. So what I wanted to do was just have a leader line. So I put a leader on it of just some standard kite line, and put about maybe 6 feet of leader on it, so that there's 6 feet of leader, and then finally just so that when it's up maybe 5 or 6 feet or so, some amount, and then it finally gets into the real monofilament line. I don't know if you can see that here, but I found that having this this leader line of standard string makes it a lot easier to rig when it's on the ground. You can put 10-12 feet if you want to, because it really doesn't, it all gets taken up in the take-up reel on the ground and the launch reel, so it's really not an issue having this preloaded with several feet of this line. And I use a Velcro strap. You can use some kind of a clip or anything, but I put a Velcro strap around this just to keep it together, and that way you don't have to worry about it ever coming loose. You know, it just packs up real good.